Okay, great. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and being here for the one-on-one Shavuos deep dive program. We're very lucky to have tonight as our guest speaker, Rabbi Shlomo Buxbaum. He's the director of the Lev Experience in Greater Washington, D.C. He's the author of the 4 Elements of an Empowered Life. And he has a weekly podcast as well called Empowered Jewish Living. So I'm going to pass it over to Rabbi Buxbaum. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Daniela, for all of your efforts and Project Inspire. And I'm lucky to be here. And this really is very special. Everyone's getting together to learn. You know, in the weekly count of Sfiras HaOmer, and of the weekly count, we know that every single week has one of the midos of Hashem, one of the attributes of God that are represented through the Sefirot, through the divine emanations, the divine channels, which all of Hashem's energy comes into the world. It's called the Sefirot, and there's 7 that correspond to 7 character traits. And each week we're focused on one of them, and each night we also focus on one of them. So every single night we're pairing together 2 different Sefirot. You know, it's an interesting thing. Like, if you, I know some of you over here are wine connoisseurs. Julian, I feel like you're a wine guy. You like sometimes even bring your wine on anyhow. But you know, so like you have a wine, but if you have it together with your gefilte fish, or if you have it together with a good steak, it's gonna taste different. You know, I know for me, like someone used to be like, we have a lot of Shabbos guests, so someone would bring over a nice bottle of wine. Like I'd be like, okay, I don't want to be rude, so I'd open it up and make kiddush on it. And then one time, my brother, who's like a big wine, snob, he comes and he brings this, and I'm opening it up and I'm starting to pour. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You brought the bottle. I'm making kiddush on it." So he's like, "No, you don't make kiddush on this wine. You make kiddush on this wine. This wine you have with the fish. This wine you have with the meat. This wine you have with dessert." So it's how when you pair 2 things together, it brings out something different. And that's why every single night of Sfiras HaOmer, we take different midos and we pair them together. And tonight, it's, where I am now, it's about 8:10, so we're a little bit of no man's land. We're after Mincha, but before Mariv. But tonight, the 2 Sfiros that we're counting are Netzach, the week of Netzach, and the night of Hod. And what Netzach is, the word Netzach means victory. But Netzach is about perseverance. It's about dominance. It's about pushing through. It's about never stopping. This nonstop, this fire. If you're a person who's a soldier, has to have netzach. You're an athlete. You're a quarterback in the Super Bowl. Right? You have to have a lot of netzach. And then the other midah, the character trait of the night that we're pairing together with that, is actually the midah that's the other extreme, and that is the midah of Hod. And Hod is about being very soft. Hod is about flexibility, the ability to listen, the ability to say, "I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I admit, thank you." All of those things is a very soft midah. And when we have these nights like Netzach with Hod or Hod with Netzach, it's this pairing of these 2 opposite traits to show the beautiful balance, right? How every single person, we're always trying to find the balance between these 2 extremes. And in any conversation, right, if you have a conversation with someone and you have a lot of Netzach, right? If I come on here and I say, it's Shavuos in a couple of weeks and everyone has to take on to learn more, because if you don't, right, and I can come and be fiery, and that's Netzach, right? Or you have Hod, and Hod is okay. I'm coming. I want to listen. What do you have to say? Let's evaluate. Every person has to have a mix. And even within a conversation, and this is true in all relationships, we're here tonight, one-on-one learning, chavrusas coming together to learn Torah from different backgrounds, different perspectives. In any conversation, we're always balancing. When I speak, I'm in the mode of Netzach. When I listen, I'm in the mode of Hod. You're taking a long road trip. You want to get there, right, as fast as you could. Don't stop, right? You got to go to the bathroom. Hold it in another 30 minutes, right? We got to get there. Let's beat the clock. That's Netzach. Ooh, look at that on the side of the road. We have a beautiful sunset. Let's stop and take a picture. That's Hod. Every person has to have this balance between Netzach and Hod. And the beauty of learning Torah is that when you learn Torah, Torah is about Netzach. It's about knowing there's an absolute truth. We're trying to find the word of Hashem, which is truth. But there's also Hod, Torah Shebal Peh, the ability to discuss, the ability to have differences of opinions, a beautiful give and take. That's the balance of Netzach and Hod. So tonight, our learning is going to be focused on Shavuos, and specifically the famous line that the Jewish people say when they're offered the Torah, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will listen. And there's so much discussion because the Gemara says that it wasn't just that they were ready to accept it, but it was that they said, Na'aseh v'nishma. There was something about that formula, we will do and we will listen. There's something about that captured that blend of Netzach and Hod, that blend of the ability to both be absolutely committed, but also to find the space within ourselves, to find our place. And as we do the learning tonight, I would love everyone to keep an eye a little bit on to really try to understand the depth of those words. Before we go, one other thought to think about as you do your learning. If I would ask anyone on this call, I would say, please, we have Shavuos coming up in 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is. What is the day of Shavuos all about? I think that probably everyone over here on this call would likely say, and I'm going to just review, and you can nod your head if this is what you're thinking, Shavuos is a day when we celebrate the giving or the receiving of the Torah. Shake your head if that's what you were thinking when I said that. Yeah, that's what people think. Very interesting, and I'm not going to say that you're wrong, but I can't fully say that you're right. Why? Because Pesach is a day of celebrating Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus. How do I know? Because that's what the Torah says. Sukkot is a day about celebrating the clouds and the protection in the desert. How do I know? Because that's what the Torah says. Shavuos, the Torah does not say that we're celebrating the receiving of the Torah. The dates work out very well. That is what happened on Shavuos, but that's not what the Torah says. The Torah says, what is Shavuos? Shavuos is the 50th day after Pesach. Shavuos is the completion of the counting of the Omer. That's what the Torah says. In fact, the Torah does not even tell me a date for Shavuos. It just says, you Pesach, you bring the Omer, you count 49 days, and then we celebrate. We celebrate after that. And the question is, if Shavuos is a day of celebrating the receiving, the giving of the Torah, the receiving of the Torah, standing at Mount Sinai, why does the Torah not say, on this day you should celebrate the giving of the Torah? Celebrate it. Why is the Torah so secretive about the date, about what it's all about, sort of under the radar? Something to think about as you go into your learning. Na'aseh v'nishma, what's the depth of those words? What is the essence of the day of Shavuos, and how might that connect? And we'll meet once again on the other side after your learning.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rabbi Buxbaum. We're going to send everybody to their Zoom rooms now to do your learning with the material that I emailed out to you. I will put a link here in the chat box if anybody needs it.
Something very, very interesting, very unusual that we find in the Torah. And that is when Hashem is telling the Jewish people, inviting them, come to Mount Sinai, you're going to receive the Torah, it's going to be so exciting. All this amazing stuff, wonderful stuff's going to happen. You're going to receive the Torah, you're going to be Mamlechas Kohanim, V'goy Kadosh, or you're going to be a holy nation, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then suddenly the tone changes and Hashem gets very strict. And suddenly Hashem says, but by the way, don't come on to the mountain. Don't step onto the mountain. And then Hashem repeats it. And Hashem says it again. And then a few verses later, Hashem's telling Moshe, Hashem saying, and by the way, go back to the Jewish people and tell them, don't come on the mountain. And there's emphasis upon emphasis on not coming onto the mountain. Like, it's almost like Hashem can't move on, from this thing. Again and again, don't come on the mountain. And what is this emphasis? What is this emphasis? Why so many times? Why this constant repetition of not coming on the mountain? And then when it comes time, finally, when it comes that moment of Matan Torah, that moment of receiving the Torah, Vayered Hashem al har, Hashem comes down, Hashem descends onto the mountain. And there's a wonderful message over there, because for many of us, we like to think that if I wake up in the morning, if I follow the game plan, Hashem, I davened when you told me to daven. I kept Shabbos when you told me to keep Shabbos. I followed the plan. Exactly. So now let's go pay up, right? I'm ready. I'm ready to start vibing spiritually. I'm ready to feel, I'm ready to have mochid, the godless expanded consciousness, right? I'm ready for my major trip. Like, here we go. And suddenly, you don't feel it. Suddenly you feel let down. Suddenly you feel like you were lied to. What were those rabbis talking about? What was it? What's happening? What am I doing wrong? Where did I do something wrong? And Hashem is communicating something. When Hashem says, don't come onto the mountain, what Hashem is saying is, all I'm asking you to do is go ahead and do your best. Do what you can do. As best as you can do the mitzvos, do the mitzvos. Talk to me. And sometimes you're just not going to feel anything. Don't think that it's like 1 + 1 = 2. Don't feel like you're going to put in the little HTML code and boop, and suddenly, wait. Because when I feel it's the right time, Vayir Hashem alahar, I'll come down. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be totally worth it for you. You're going to see. But that's my program. That's not your program. You just have to do what you have to do. And be patient and be open and let go of attachment to what you think the outcome should be. You know, it's interesting when we come to the holiday of Shavuos. So I asked a question earlier. I said, why does the Torah not say on the 50th day or on the 6th day of Sivan, let's celebrate receiving the Torah? The Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says count every single day, do a little bit, do what you can, and then show up at Mount Sinai. Just show up there. That's all I'm asking you to do. And wait there. And then eventually I'll come down on the mountain when I'm ready and I'll find you. And I want to point something very interesting out. Something else that's unusual about Shavuos. You know, there's no mitzvahs in the Torah for Shavuos, right? Did you ever notice that? Pesach is matzah, and Rosh Hashanah you blow the shofar, and Sukkot you sit in the sukkah, and everything has it. Shavuos doesn't have it. What does Shavuos have? Only customs, only minhagim. And I think that we know Shavuos by probably 4 main minhagim. What are they? Anyone want to call out what's one minhag that you feel when you think of Shavuos, you think about this minhag? What do you think of?
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake. All right. Who said that? Room 18. Edna Ritz. Right? Edna Ritz, right? Cheesecake. Awesome. Yep. What else? Learning all night, Leah says on the side. That's 2.
Flowers.
Flowers, number 3. And 4th one, there's some others, but the 4th main one,
Ruth.
Reading the book of Ruth. Reading the book of Ruth, exactly. Now, when our sages put together a group of customs, not only our sages, but the Kabbalists over the course, right, these customs come from different times. There's got to be a theme. Kind of seems a little random. Okay, let's learn all night, and then let's have cheesecake, and then read the book of Ruth, and throw in some flowers. Why not? Just make it like there has to be a theme. So what is the connection between all of these things? And there are several. There's not just one. There are several. But I want to offer one approach, perhaps. Let's begin with dairy, because that's maybe a little bit the most esoteric. There's a lot of reasons why we eat dairy. Many, many reasons. One of those several reasons are because of the numerical value. Anyone here into gematria? I'm a big fan of, I love gematria. Some people are like, oh, come on, I could have come up with that. But you couldn't. But some of them are really really wonderful. So over here, milk in Hebrew is chalav, right? Chalav. Ches, lamed, beis. Ches is 8. Put it in the chat. Someone keep track, right? Number 20, I love it. Ches is 8, Lamed is 30, Beis is 2, and my yeshiva Torah V'das math tells me that equals 40. 40 is a magic number. By the way, do we have 40 rooms? Is anyone here in room 40? No, we don't. It doesn't get up to that high. But 40, we know in the Torah, 40 is always a number of transition and rebirth. Right? A mikvah has 40 sa'ah in it, 40 measurements in it of water, because we go in and we have a complete rebirth, transformation. Right? A woman who's impure comes out pure. A man who had a ritual impurity comes out pure. A convert goes in and comes out a Jew. It rained by the Mabul 40 days in order to purify the world. The Jewish people stood at Mount Sinai waiting for Moshe to come back because they were undergoing a transformation. They wandered in the desert for 40 years to try to achieve this level to be able to enter into Israel. So 40 is the time of complete transformation. Now, we'll get back to that in a moment. The book of Ruth. Why do we read it? Again, lots of different explanations. But one thing that's interesting about the book of Ruth, aside from the fact that she's probably the most prominent convert the Jewish people ever had, she's also the mother of, or the great-grandmother, right, of David HaMelech, King David, the beginning of the Davidic dynasty, which eventually is the lineage of Mashiach, right? So that means that there's something messianic, there's something connected to Mashiach about Shavuos as well. Shavuos is in a way the beginning of the process of bringing out Mashiach. Now, by the way, it's no coincidence. Who brings down the Torah on Shavuos? It's Moshe, beginning with a mem, which is numerical value 40. Ultimately leading the end of time, the Redeemer is going to be Mashiach, also with a 40. And by the way, it's also Mordechai HaTzadik and Matisyahu Kohen Gadol. It's always with the mem. So over here we have Rus showing that Shavuos is connected to the times of Mashiach. Now, perhaps over here, the whole idea behind Shavuos, remember, the theme of Shavuos is come up to the mountain and wait until the time is right. And it might be so hard to wait, but you just have to do what you have to do. Just show up. And eventually, if you're patient, it'll happen. Right? Mashiach, there's nothing more that we can, here we are, year 5782, and we've been through it. We've literally been through the ringer. Right? We've done everything. We're years and years. We're fighting. We're still here. For 45 of us here tonight learning. There's no reason why there should be a Jew left on the planet. And yet here we are, and we rebuild and we rebuild and we rebuild. And we're like, Hashem, seriously? Like, have we not done enough yet? Like, Higi Azman. Hashem says, don't come onto the mountain. Just wait around the mountain. I'm coming. And very soon, Vayir Hashem al ha'anan. Chalav is gematria 40 because 40 is the process. It's the process of transformation that we're going through. It's a process. 40 once again is Moshe. It's Mashiach. Let's think about the other customs that there are. Flowers. And so flowers are beautiful. But what do we know about flowers? Hazorim bedima berina yiktzoru. You have to plant with schwitz, with tears, right? Trust me, I have this, it's driving me bananas. I have this patch of barren land in my backyard, great grass, and then this one part where it's just a big pile of mud. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I pour seeds and I sit there with the hose, and like anytime any of my kids go near there, right? I'm like, don't go near there, you're gonna step on what might be a little blade. And then like this could be a little grass coming like boing, and like a bird Chas v'shalom should fly in it, and I'm sitting there like shooting a shotgun, like don't come near my one blade of grass. It takes time. And here, when you have a bouquet of flowers, if you think about what went into it, a seed had to go into the ground and rot, and you sat and you waited, and suddenly it turned into something beautiful. But it's the process. It focuses on the process. All you can do is plant. All you can do is plant and water and wait until it happens. And then finally, all night learning. If any of you know, and again, shout out to Daniela, she's in Israel now. It's 4:30 in the morning where she is. It's going to be right. She stayed up all night for this, which is awesome. Round of applause, right? But we know that Shavuos, right? If anyone thinks we stay up all night Shavuos because that's the way we get the most learning in, way off, right? You stay up all night and then you're like zonked for the next 2 days. You can't even keep your head up by the meal, right? Productivity wise, not a good game plan. But yet Hashem says, stay up all night learning. Why? Because there's this moment. I had the privilege, I learned in Israel. I don't know if you've ever been for Shavuos in Israel. And sometimes, some certain years, when it came towards the morning, we would go to the Kotel. And after this night of learning, we're tired and we're fighting to stay awake. And then we start walking towards the kotel, and the sun starts to rise, and the birds start to chirp. And we're like, the night is over. The morning is here. And once again, we have a simon, we have a sign of a process happening. We're learning all night to show that that's what we have to do. We just have to show up and do our thing. And if we stay the course, no matter how dark it gets, the morning will come. The flowers will bloom. Mashiach, Ben David, Ben Rus will come. Right? We'll be drinking coffee together. Milk, another milk plan, right? Coffee is always, for me, a sign of redemption. All of this will come together. The Jewish people say, Na'aseh v'nishma. And Hashem says, wow, they figured it out. Because everybody else said, Nishma v'naseh. Hashem, you show up first, tell us what it's about, and then you'll set us on course. And Hashem says, only the Jewish people realize it's naseh, it's naseh, it's naseh. Stay the course. Do what you got to do. Stick to your guns. You don't feel it. You're not connecting. You're confused. You feel like Hashem abandoned you. Just stick to the course. Just do it, do it, do it. And you'll see eventually Nishma. You'll hear the Kol HaTor Nishma B'Artzenu. Yeah. You'll hear the sound of Mashiach coming. Huh? And perhaps that is the message of Shavuos. That's what we're trying to connect to with Shavuos. Shavuos seems out of reach. The Torah doesn't say it's a day of Matan Torah. The Torah says it's a day of showing up and saying, Hashem, I am down, I'm committed, I am here, Hineni, and whenever you decide is the right time for me to feel it, the right time for us to merit that redemption, we will be right here at Har Sinai waiting for you. So I appreciate all of you coming on. We'll end over here. Thank you so much. And let's keep in touch.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Rabbi Buxbaum.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for seeing all of our technical support.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a great Shavuos, everybody.
Thank you. That was a beautiful sum up, beautiful wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good Shavuos.